Section 2, Chinese Society. When the Han Dynasty in China collapsed in the AD 200s, it was a disaster for China's economy. As fighting began, cities were damaged and farms were burned. Artisans made fewer goods, farmers grew fewer crops, and merchants had less to trade. Under the Tang Dynasty, these problems were solved. Why did farming improve? When the Tang rulers took power in AD 618, they brought peace to the countryside and gave more land to farmers. As a result, farmers were able to make many advances. They improved irrigation and introduced new ways of growing their crops. Farmers also developed new kinds of rice, which grew well in poor soil, produced more per acre, grew faster, and were resistant to disease. These changes helped farmers grow more and more rice. China's farmers also began to grow tea, which became a popular drink. They made many improvements in other crops as well. With more food available, the number of people in China greatly increased. At the same time, more people moved southward, where rice grew abundantly in the Changjiang Valley. China's trade grows. Tang rulers also had roads and waterways built. These changes made travel within and outside of China much easier. Chinese merchants were able to increase trade with people in other parts of Asia. The Silk Road, now under Tang control, once again bustled with activity. One of the items traded by the Chinese was silk fabric. This product gave the road its name and was popular in markets to the west of China. In addition, China traded tea, steel, paper, and porcelain. Porcelain is made of fine clay and baked at high temperatures. In return, other countries sent China products such as gold, silver, precious stones, and fine woods. Other trade routes were also established. Roads linked China to Central Asia, India, and Southwest Asia. In addition, the Tang opened new ports along China's coast to boost trade. New technology. During the Tang and Song dynasties, new inventions changed China's society. In time, these discoveries spread to other parts of the world. China discovers coal and steel. For most of China's history, people burned wood to heat their homes and cook their food. By the time of the Tang Dynasty, wood was becoming scarce in China. However, the Chinese had discovered that coal could be used to heat things, and soon a coal mining industry developed. The Chinese used coal to heat furnaces to high temperatures, which led to another discovery. When iron was produced in hot furnaces heated by coal, the molten iron mixed with carbon from the coal. This created a new, stronger metal known today as steel. The Chinese used steel to make many things. They made armor, swords, and helmets for their army, but they also made stoves, farm tools, drills, steel chain, and even steel nails and sewing needles. The printing process. Another Chinese invention was a method for printing books. Before printing, books had to be copied by hand. As a result, few books were made, and they were very expensive. The Chinese began printing in the AD 600s. They used blocks of wood on which they cut the characters of an entire page. Ink was placed over the wooden block. Then the paper was laid on the block to make a print. Cutting the block took a long time. When they were completed, however, the wood blocks could be used again and again to make many copies. The Chinese soon began printing books. The earliest known printed book dates from about AD 868. It is a Buddhist book called the Diamond Sutra. The invention of printing was very important. It helped to spread ideas more rapidly. In the AD 1000s, a Chinese printer named Bi Sheng invented movable type for printing. With movable type, each character is a separate piece. The pieces can be moved around to make sentences and used again and again. Bi Sheng made his pieces from clay and put them together to produce book pages. However, because written Chinese has so many characters, wood block printing was easier and quicker than using movable type. Other Chinese inventions. The Chinese made gunpowder for use in explosive. One weapon was the fire lance, an ancestor of the gun. It used gunpowder and helped make the Chinese army a strong force. The Chinese also used gunpowder to make fireworks. The Chinese also built large ships with rudders and sails. About 1150, Chinese sailors began using the compass to help them find their way. This let ships sail farther from land. Art and literature. The Tang and Song eras were a golden age for Chinese culture. The invention of printing helped to spread Chinese ideas and artwork. Chinese rulers actively supported art and literature and invited artists and poets to live and work in the capital city of Chang'an. What was Tang poetry like? Chinese writers best express themselves in poems. In fact, the Tang dynasty is viewed as the great age of poetry in China. Some Tang poems celebrated the beauty of nature, the thrill of seasons changing, and the joy of having a good friend. Other Tang poems express sadness for the shortness of life and mourn the cruelty of friends parting. Li Bo was one of the most popular poets of the Tang era. His poems often centered on nature. The poem below by Li Bo is probably the best known poem in China. For centuries, Chinese schoolchildren have had to memorize it. Its title is Still Night Thoughts. Moonlight in front of my bed, I took it for frost on the ground. I lift my eyes to watch the mountain moon, lower them, and dream of home. Li Bo, Still Night Thoughts. Another favorite poet of that time was Dua Fu. He was a poor civil servant who had a hard life. Civil war swept China and food was hard to find. Dua Fu nearly died of starvation. His problems opened his eyes to the sufferings of the common people. As a result, Dua Fu's poems often were very serious. They frequently dealt with issues such as social injustice and the problems of the poor. Dua Fu wrote the poem below after a rebellion left the capital city in ruins. It is called Spring Landscape. Rivers and mountains survive broken countries. Spring returns. The city grows, lush again. Blossoms scatter tears, thinking of us. And this separation and a bird's cry startles the heart. Beacon fires have burned through 3 months. By now, letters are worth 10,000 in gold. Dua Fu, Spring Landscape. Painting in Song, China. The painting of landscapes became widespread during the Song dynasty. However, Chinese artists did not try to make exact pictures of the landscapes they were painting. Instead, they wished to portray the idea of the mountains, lakes, and other features of their landscapes. Also, empty spaces were left in the paintings on purpose. This is because the Taoists believe that a person cannot know the whole truth about something. Taoist beliefs also can be seen in the way people are portrayed. They are tiny figures fishing in small boats or wandering up a hillside trail. In other words, the people are living in but not controlling nature. They are only part of the harmony of the natural setting. Chinese painters often wrote poetry on their works. They used a brush and ink to write beautiful characters called calligraphy. Chinese porcelain. During the Tang period, Chinese artisans perfected the making of porcelain. Because porcelain later came from China to the West, people today sometimes call porcelain by the name China. Porcelain can be made into plates, cups, figurines, and vases. In AD 851, an Arab traveler described the quality of the Tang porcelain. There is in China a very fine clay from which are made vases. Water in these vases is visible through them, and yet they are made of clay. The technology for making porcelain spread to other parts of the world. It finally reached Europe in the 1700s.